Hello friends and happy October! October is my favorite month of the year, and since this is my first October doing YouTube, I thought I would do 4 special videos for the entire month. Every week, I will be sharing a different spell, potion, powder, oil, or witchy craft you can do that revolves around Samhain. In today's video, I will be showing you how to make Ancestor Incense. You can use this as your altar incense or any time you will be communicating with spirits. I will not only be using it throughout the month, but I will also be using it as I construct my altar for Dia de los Muertos, to pay respects to my ancestors and loved ones that have passed. Samhain is a sort of New Year's for witches, and is also the day where the veil between the living and the dead is at its thinnest. If you call upon your ancestors as you do your workings, this is the perfect incense to have on hand. It can also be used for deities or any other spirits that you use in your workings. So if you want to learn how to make this incense, put on some spooky Halloween movies, light a pumpkin candle, and follow along. The first ingredient you will need is frankincense. Frankincense has a long history of use from the ancient Egyptians to modern-day churches. So really, you can use this on its own as a way to honor the dead, but it makes for a great base to add the rest of the herbs into. It definitely has a strong and very recognizable scent. And as you see throughout the video, I also never give proportions. I just eyeball it and go with whatever I feel in the moment. Next, you need sandalwood. Sandalwood has a very high spiritual vibration that assists in conjuring spirits. It is a very sacred wood that was used in some parts of Asia to embalm the body and assist the body into its next life. It helps calm the mind, helps you become more spiritually focused, and is used in many divination workings as well as different types of death rituals. Star anise is considered a funeral herb and an herb of consecration. In Japanese lore, this herb was placed on temples and burial sites to bring energies of protection and beneficence. It is also often used as a temple incense. Star anise is useful to invoke deities, ancestors, and to banish any negative energies or entities. Rosemary is a very useful herb that is utilized for many different occasions, including funerals. It can help us remember our loved ones and bring protection to those passing on to another life. It helps us remember that we are mortal bodies as we walk this earth. It also dispels any negative energies or entities as well as provides protection during ritual work. Mugwort has strong associations with dream work, divination, and visions. The protective qualities of mugwort help keep you safe from any dark entities during ritual work or dream work. Mugwort provides a safe journey for your loved ones, whether it's in this waking life or while crossing over. Juniper is an herb of purification and protection. You can use either the berries or the dried needles. Juniper is often used as a cleansing and protective incense for your home. It protects you from negative forces, spirits, and helps keep illness at bay. Pine is considered a sacred protective tree. It is often used as incense to purify the space and drive out any dark forces. It is said that if you hang pine branches over your fireplace, it helps drive away evil. If you don't have any pine needles, you can also use the pine sap or resin. Copal, or copal, is good for clearing and cleansing. Much like frankincense, it is a sacred resin used by Mesoamerican cultures. I chose this as many of my ancestors come from areas where copal is frequently used, but you can omit it and choose an herb from your own culture or heritage if you like, or just omit it completely. Lastly, you will need marigold, and marigold has deep roots in modern-day Mexico in the rituals of honoring the dead for Dia de los Muertos on November 2nd. These are flowers that adorn altars and graves alike on this day. Using marigold shows the departed your love for them and to help honor them, whether you spread the petals on their grave, use them on your altar, or in this case, in an incense blend. The first thing you want to do is to grind up all your resins. Here I'm adding in, I would say about 1/4 cup of frankincense, and this is going to act as the backbone to your entire blend. So you'll be adding more frankincense than anything else, but of course you can adjust it to your personal taste and liking. And I'm not making it a complete powder, as that takes a really long time, so I'm just crushing it into small little pieces. Some of them will be more finely powdered than others, but if you have a little bit of larger pieces, it's okay, as you will be burning it on a charcoal disc and it pretty much smokes up right away. Next, you're going to add your sandalwood, and sandalwood is actually from an endangered tree, but that's mainly red sandalwood and Indian sandalwood, so just make sure you're sourcing your sandalwood powder from an ethical source and not from any trees in India, but Australia actually has started doing a lot of conservation work, so anything coming out of Australia would be a perfect choice. Now you can add in your star anise, and I added about a handful, but of course use what you have. If you only have a few small pieces, you can do that, or if you like more, go ahead. And I also crushed this up in the mortar, but if you have a coffee grinder, that's a great way to do this a lot more efficiently and a lot more quickly. And as with the frankincense, I didn't powder it because that A, would take a long time, and B, is totally unnecessary. Just make sure they're tiny little pieces. And add it into your mix. Next, you're going to add in your rosemary, and I chose to grind it up just a little bit in my mortar and pestle, but the pieces are so small, it's unnecessary. But if you have garden grown sage, typically those pieces might be a little larger than something you'd buy from a natural health food store or an herbal shop. So you might want to cut those up with a small pair of scissors or grind it up like I'm doing here, or as I mentioned before, a coffee grinder works wonders for these incenses. I like to give my incense blend a little mix between each addition of the herbs, and each time I'm just putting in my intentions and really focusing on that energy of communicating with my ancestors, feeling protected. Next, you're going to add in your mugwort, and this is some mugwort that I grow in my house. It's actually a native California mugwort, so it looks a little bit different than the traditional mugwort. But if you've never seen it before, mugwort has kind of a soft, sort of similar texture to marshmallow. It's kind of, I want to say spongy, but when you crumble it between your fingers, it's not super dry. It doesn't just crumble. It sort of sticks together, so just really work it between your fingers and make sure to get it into small little pieces so it really incorporates into the rest of those herbal ingredients. For your pine needles, you're going to just want to rip them up into smaller chunks. They only need to be about a 1/4 inch big, just small enough so that they can fit on a charcoal disc. If you wanted to use pine resin or sap, that works really well also, and it smells amazing. I used to have some, but I ran out, so I'm just going for some dried pine needles for this incense. And next, you're going to do your copal just like you did the frankincense. And for some reason, copal is a lot drier. It's not as sticky and gummy as frankincense, so it powders down quite quickly into these sort of little glass shards, which I prefer to the frankincense since it tends to stick to my mortar and pestle and it's hard to clean off. If you can't find copal, you can also substitute myrrh, or as I mentioned before, the pine resin works beautifully. For your juniper berries, you can mash them up just a little bit in your mortar and pestle, but you can also add them in whole. They're a little bit fresh still. I don't know if all juniper berries are like that, but from where I get them, they tend to be a little moist still in the middle, so crushing them is pretty difficult. I would just toss them in whole if I were you, but for the purposes of this video, I just squash them up a little bit. Lastly, add in your marigold, and marigold has many different varieties, and in the herbal world, marigold is most commonly known as calendula. And this calendula I grew in my garden over the summer, and it's dried and beautiful. I have an heirloom variety as well as the more common orange variety in here, and it looks just really pretty. It adds a bright pop of color to this mixture. And once you stir this up, you're all set to go, and just burn this over a charcoal disc on your altar when you're working with ancestors, deities, or spirits. It helps you really meditate and get into the space, a trance-like state where you can communicate with your loved ones that have passed on. And let me know if you end up making this for Samhain, or if you have any special plans or rituals you plan to do on this very special day. Let me know down below, and if you have any questions, comments, or ideas for new videos you'd like to see, leave them down below in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you next week for another special Samhain recipe.